So when you go into the physiology tab, you're going to see a few different options in there. We've got heart motion, which by now you probably have seen the beating heart. That's where you're going to find that. We have two different cases that you can use heart motion on. The regional is just going to be that high-res regional heart. So you're going to have kind of a limited field of view. And then you have the full body female Asian cadaver that you can also use with that heart motion function. We have our nerve pathways tool, which allows you to basically see the pathway from either like a muscle or an end organ or a dermatome all the way up to the brain. The catheterization tool, which allows you to simulate and view kind of animated simulations of different catheterization procedures. And then we have the pathways tool, which you can use in either the male or the female cadaver. And with this tool, it allows you to animate kind of like flow through structures through various pathways. So let's dive into these different tools here. So with heart motion, so if we open up the regional, when you first load it, basically what you're going to see is the heart there beating on your table. And you can toggle that beating on or off just by hitting this play and pause button. And if at any point you close this ECG window, you can always reopen it by tapping on that little ECG icon down there at the bottom of your screen. So within the heart motion tool, there are a few different things that you can do here with your ECG. As I mentioned, you can play and pause it. And then you also have a scroll bar here that's going to allow you to scroll through one single cardiac cycle and one ECG. So that allows you to very slowly kind of go through and see what's happening at each wave on that ECG cycle. Now, over here on the right-hand side, if you're playing, if you have the heart beating, you can also use this scroll bar here and you can adjust heart rate. So you can go anywhere from 40 beats per minute on the low end to 150 beats per minute on the high end. And if you want to make your heart beat really super duper slow, we do have this slow motion box here. So if you put it at 40 beats per minute and hit slow-mo, then you're really going to have a nice slow heartbeat going on to try and kind of follow the action there. In addition to the slow motion, over here, you're also going to see this ECG scroll box. So you'll notice right now as the ECG scrolls, you have that kind of that black leading box. If I check that tab, it gets rid of that leading box and then it just scrolls without that. The other thing that you can do here is turn on the cardiac conduction. Now, right now, we can't really see any of the conducting structures. So what I like to do is set up some presets where I have different things set as transparent. And if they are not there already, check back sometime today on the link for this workshop, and you should see a file there that actually links you to the Google Drive where I've put these presets in case you want to use them. So I like to do one where I have basically the external parts of the heart transparent, so I can just see those conducting structures in there. So now if I turn on my heartbeat, I'm able to follow that. Again, it's kind of fast, so I can hit that slow motion box and I can see it in slow motion. Or, as I mentioned before, I can use this slider bar and I can just do one single cardiac cycle. So I can follow and say, oh, look, okay, my SA node now is lighting up. All right, oh, now I get my P wave. I can follow it through the intranodal pathway, down to my AV node, and then I can see my QRS and so forth. So you can really tie together the electrical events that are happening in the conduction system with what you're seeing on the ECG. You can also, here's another preset, a slightly different view. We've got the valves in there. So in addition to showing conduction, you can also look at what the valves are doing at any point on the ECG. And one of the things that's coming in table 8 is just some minor adjustments to those valve timings, just to make them a little bit more accurate than they currently are. They're good, but we're making them better. So again, you can play that heartbeat and you can see those valves. Oh, I have it in slow motion still. Opening and closing. And you can kind of see what's happening with, the heart itself, and kind of see, oh, when the ventricles contract, now my valves close, and so forth. So I love this heart motion tool because it really allows you to kind of tie all of those pieces together and really see them in action, which is something that you can't do in a 2D image. So you can really make those correlations. So again, you can view this in the full body as well. The functionality is exactly the same. It's just you have the whole body instead of just the heart regional. So that's our heart motion tab. So the next tab in that list is going to be the nerve pathway tool. This is one of my favorites, and not just because I played a big role in creating this thing. So when you open up the nerve pathway tool, it actually generally is going to load. I was playing around with her, so she didn't load the way she normally would. Oh, nope, not that one. That one. So normally it's going to load and it's going to look like this. You're going to see the female cadaver, and she's going to have a general dermatome map. And then you're going to have this little legend up here that currently isn't showing anything because we haven't selected anything. And you can toggle that legend on and off using this little nerve icon down here at the bottom of your screen. Oh, sorry, I'm not used to talking so much anymore. So there's a lot going on in this nerve pathways tab. And so sometimes it's kind of hard to even know where to start with it because you can do so many things with it. So basically, the way I look at it, there's kind of 4 different starting points, if you will, that you can use when you're using this tool. You can start from the perspective of the nerves. So click on a nerve, see what it does. You can start from the muscle, click on a muscle, see what innervates it. Click on a dermatome, see what innervates it, or click on an organ and see what innervates it. So again, for this, I like to have presets kind of set up so that I can quickly get to whatever view it is that I want to start with. So if we start with a nerve view, you could start with all of the nerves on if you wanted to, depending on how you want to approach it. Or let's say you're teaching brachial plexus, you could create a preset where you just have the brachial plexus nerves turned on. So when you're in the nerve view, as I like to call it, if you click on a nerve, let's say I click on the axillary nerve here, this legend is now going to show you a number of things. And you'll notice that the nerves become color-coded. So I can see now that blue, and it's kind of hard, they're really small. Let me zoom in here. Any nerves that are colored blue are going to be your motor branches. Those that are this kind of salmony color are going to be your sensory branches. Where it's purple shows you where you have mixed fibers, motor and sensory, traveling through there. And then you're going to see all of the different pathways going all the way up to the brain. So what you can do now is, let's say I want to know what's the motor function of the axillary nerve. I can click on the motor, little word there in the legend, and now it's going to show me just the motor pathway, and it's going to show me what muscles are innervated by that particular nerve. So I can see that I am, innervating my deltoid and my teres minor. If I click on one of those muscles, right, it will tell me the muscle name. Except now I lost my teres minor because I just clicked on the muscle. So if I click on that nerve again, now I can get my teres minor back, and I can click on the teres minor, and I can see that. So students can kind of explore. Oh, whoops, I hit off of the nerve. So yeah, if at any point in time you click off of the cadaver, it's going to reset you back to your starting view. So if you accidentally do that, pop right back on there. So that is the motor function. And then it shows you in the legend here, the nerve, it shows you what tracts it's going up through the CNS. So it shows that it's going through the lateral corticospinal tract and then up through the corticospinal tract. And then the really cool thing about this is you can also see the decussation happening. So you can see that it's the left muscle, it's going up the left lateral corticospinal tract, but then it comes up the right side after it decussates, and then takes you all the way up to the specific part of your primary motor cortex for that particular region. So pretty cool, I think. Now with sensory, you have a few different options. So we split up sensory pathways into the pain and temperature pathway, and then the touch pathway. So if I select sensory, pain, and temperature, it's going to show me the very specific dermatome that's innervated by the axillary nerve. And then it's going to show me that pain and temperature use the lateral spinothalamic tract. And again, I can see, oh, look, this pain and temperature information comes in, and it's actually decussating in the spinal cord. So it's coming across right off the bat and then going up the right-hand side, as opposed to, say, the touch pathway, where I'm using the cuneate fasciculus, and I see it coming up the left side and then decussating in the medulla. So just kind of, again, kind of allows you to highlight some of those differences in the pathways that your different sensory modalities are taking. Or you can view mixed sensory and see both pathways simultaneously. All right, so that is the nerve starting point, if you will. You can also start from the muscle starting point. Again, you could have the whole body's worth of muscles out there, or if we're still focused on upper limb, I could set up a preset that just shows my upper limb muscles. So using this method here, I have my muscle. Say I click on the biceps brachii, it's going to highlight the path for the biceps brachii. So again, it's going to show me the nerve, then it's going to show me the tract all the way up to the specific region of the cerebral cortex. Sorry, having an issue here. All right. So again, it maps out that pathway here in the legend. There's not going to be a whole lot else going on in there because you're specifically in the motor function since you're in muscles. But as before, so I've clicked on the biceps brachii. If I click on that axillary, I'm sorry, still have axillary nerve on the brain. If I click on that musculocutaneous nerve, I can now kind of explore and say, oh, what other muscles are innervated by this nerve? Oh, look, I have my brachialis and my coracobrachialis. So students can kind of see kind of like a bigger picture perspective on things, right? They stress about memorizing every little detail, but if they can see patterns, sometimes that's helpful. So, if they go, oh, the musculocutaneous nerve, look, it innervates all of the anterior brachial muscles, right? Same thing, if they wandered down and oh, whoops, I forgot, I'm in my muscle mode. But if they were to click on, say, the radial nerve, right, then they could see, oh, the radial nerve does all posterior, brachium and antebrachium muscles. So it allows them to really kind of see patterns if they want to see patterns, or they can see the specifics if they want to see the specifics. So that's our muscle starting point. And then where it brings you initially when you open it up is in the dermatome map here. So we have our general dermatome map. If I click anywhere on my general dermatome map, what it's going to do is kind of zero in on the more specific region right at the point where I tapped on the cadaver. And so then what I can see is here's this dermatome, and here are all of the nerves that are involved with innervating that dermatome. So I have several nerves that are in that area, and all of them hit some point of that posterior forearm back there. And again, I can see my separate pathways for pain and temperature versus touch, or I can view that mixed pathway. And if I click off, I can go explore other regions, so I can see, oh, what's going on in the thigh. And then it allows them to see those weirdo bits of innervation where you have a whole area innervated by a particular nerve, except for one little barren spot that's a different nerve, which always cracks me up. I don't know why it amuses me, but it does. So yeah, so basically they can just kind of tap around and explore the different areas of sensory innervation. So then our last way that we can use this is the organs themselves, looking at autonomic innervation. We don't have autonomic innervation in there for every single organ, but we do have all of the major organs. So if I click on something like, say, the stomach, then what it's going to do is have me decide whether I want to see sympathetic pathway or parasympathetic pathway. So if I select the sympathetic pathway, I can see that it's coming down through the sympathetic trunk, and then it's going to, show me the ganglia, so I can rotate, see that it comes down through the sympathetic trunk and the splanchnic nerves into the celiac plexus. Whereas if I choose the sympathetic pathway, there are no sympathetic ganglia involved. It's all vagus nerve. And then I can show those nerves directly coming off of the vagus nerve and to the stomach. So again, it's just allowing students to visualize the differences in those sympathetic versus parasympathetic pathways. If I click on the urinary bladder, I can follow my sympathetic pathway down. I can see my ganglia down here. And if I go parasympathetic, then I can see it going through my pelvic splanchnic nerves and into the plexus. So they can see the shared components, but they can also see the unique components using this tool. So I highly encourage you to play around in this nerve tool. There's a lot going on in there, and it can be kind of overwhelming. But if you just kind of take a step back and think about what you want to use it for, then it kind of gives you an idea of where to start. So again, kind of key applications, if you will, or uses for this. At its most basic level, it allows students to understand just individual nerve functions. If I click on a nerve, I can see exactly what that nerve does, right? I can click on, say, the radial nerve. Oops, I hit a branch of it, but if I hit the, I can get to it. If I hit the radial nerve, I can see, where its sensory branches are. I can see where its motor branches are. I can see all of the muscles that it innervates. So I can just zero in on one single nerve and understand it. Or I can also get more of a big picture understanding and see those patterns. So it's like, okay, I can go from individual muscle. Oh, this muscle is innervated by the radial nerve. Oh, that muscle is innervated by the radial nerve. Or I can just look at it from a whole perspective and go, oh wow, if I look at this, I can see all of these posterior muscles. They're all innervated by the radial nerve. Oh, so I don't have to memorize every single one. I know if it's a posterior muscle, it's going to be the radial nerve. So it just allows them to really visualize those patterns, which I think is very helpful. Or if I hit the median nerve, I can see, oh look, it's those anterior forearm muscles. So I love this tool. And again, not just because I'm biased, because I helped create it, but because I think it's really super useful. All right, so that's our nerve tool. The third in our list is going to be the catheterization tool. And here's hoping it loaded. I'm using Table on Cloud for this one because my computer, oh no, I lost it. Okay, we're going to do this out of order. Disconnected me. Oh, there we are. Never mind. I didn't lose it. Oh, and I lied again. That's pathways. I have catheterization right here. Sorry. Too many windows to keep track of. I'm losing it. All right, so the catheterization tool. When you load up the catheterization tool, you're going to see the female cadaver here, and you'll see two icons down at the bottom. One is this little catheter icon, so that's going to bring up your catheterization menu. You're also going to see that ECG icon, which should look familiar because that's the same icon that we had in the heart motion tool. So you can actually turn on heart motion within this tool as well. So as you're performing some of these procedures, you could actually have the heart beating to give it a little, a more realistic approach. So in the catheterization tool, basically what you have are 4 different procedures that you can do an animated simulation of. And for each procedure, you have different paths that you can take. So you can do a PCI, a percutaneous coronary intervention, and I'll show you a little demo of that here in just a sec. So basically with this, you can perform an angioplasty and deploy a little balloon catheter. You can also deploy a stent, which is kind of cool. So with this one, you can start either at the femoral artery or the radial artery, and you can choose to go either to the circumflex artery or to the right coronary artery. So I'm going to do a femoral to circumflex path. So I'm going to select that path, and then I'm going to hit OK. And so that's going to bring me to a preset view here, and it's going to bring up my little interface that basically allows me to go step by step through the process. Bear with me on this because it's really challenging to do on a single monitor. It'd be much nicer on your full-size table. But basically what you do is you just click step by step, and it's going to animate each part of the process. So let me kind of shift this over. So the first part of the process is inserting the needle into the femoral artery. And then I'm just going to click on the next step and remove the syringe. Then I'm going to insert the guide wire. This one is probably not going to be very visible to you through my screen share. Let me zoom in. Let me reinsert it. You can follow that little guide wire in there. I don't know if you can see it. Hopefully you can. And then we remove that insertion needle. Then we bring in the introducer sheath. And we remove our guide wire. And then we bring in our catheter. So here's where you get a little interactive with it. So for this part, let me kind of zoom out so we can see the whole process. You're going to use this slider bar, and that's going to deploy the catheter. So you can follow that catheter right up through the aorta, follow it all the way into my left coronary artery and out to my endpoint. So now I have deployed, or I've placed my guiding catheter. Now I'm going to do the same thing and put in my balloon catheter. Drag this in, and here comes my balloon. So now my balloon catheter is in place. Now I get to inflate the balloon. Let me try to zoom in here so you can watch this process. So as I inflate the balloon, you can see right in here that balloon inflating. Right. And then I'm going to remove my balloon catheter by dragging that slider bar back. And now I'm going to deliver my stent. So bring in another catheter with the stent. And now, I love this, You can actually see the little wire mesh of the stent now inside our artery there. Now we're going to inflate our balloon and inflate that stent. And voila, this individual now has a nice opened up artery, no infarction coming their way. And then we just remove the catheters and we are left with one artery with stent in place. So pretty slick, I think. Let's change our thing. So that is the PCI procedure. The coronary angiogram, it's going to be a very similar process where it's going to walk you through step by step by step. In this case, you can either go femoral artery or radial artery to the heart. And then basically it's going to place that catheter in there. And then if you were doing an actual angiogram, you would inject the dye. This doesn't inject the dye. Maybe someday we'll get some dye injection going on because that'd be really cool. But it just shows you the placement of that catheter. Ventriculography, very similar in terms of how it works. You're gonna, place that catheter. Again, in this case, you're either going from the femoral or radial artery into the ventricle, where you would then deploy, or you would release your contrast media. So like if you wanted to measure ejection fraction, stroke volume, cardiac output, that would be what you could do doing a ventriculography. And then the last procedure on here, the right heart catheterization, which they do to test for pulmonary hypertension. So this one has a slightly different starting point. This one actually starts in the jugular vein. So let's take a look at this one. All right, so here we have our needle and our internal jugular vein. Same kind of a deal though. We're just going to go step by step. Insert the needle, remove the syringe, insert the guide wire, remove the needle, bring in the introducer sheath, which is a pretty high-tech, fancy little dealy bobber there. Remove the guide wire, bring in the balloon. So I'm going to drag that catheter slider bar and bring that in. It's going to go right into my left pulmonary artery so that I can measure pressure in there since I'm looking for pulmonary hypertension. I'm going to inflate my balloon and voila. Now we're measuring pressure and whatever else we're doing while we're in there. And then when we're done, out it goes. And now we're back to our starting point. So again, just some kind of fun and very informative little animations to allow students to really visualize what's involved in these catheterization procedures, and to get, slightly interactive with it using the little slider bars and whatnot. So kind of fun. Okie doke. So that's our catheterization tool. So the last tool that I want to get into is kind of the most complex tool of the bunch in terms of using it in a customized way. So I wanted to make sure I had plenty of time to go through this tool. So the pathways tool, again, you can choose the male cadaver or the female cadaver. They both have preset, pre-made pathways that are going to be the same, except for any pathways that are, where you have sex differences in the anatomy. Then, of course, their pathways are going to be a little bit different from one another. So to load up a pathway, you're going to click on this little pathway icon down here at the bottom, and it's going to bring up that interface. And so what you'll see in here is a list of pre-made pathways that you can use. It's an alphabetical list, so that makes it easy to find things. So to load a pathway, you're going to go click on that purple arrow. So we're going to click on the alcohol pathway so students can see what pathway does alcohol take when they consume it, which they shouldn't be doing, but they do. All right, so once I click on one of those pathways, it's going to bring up my interface. Depending on the pathway, some are more complicated than others. You're going to see here on the left-hand side the different stages of that pathway. If it's a simple pathway, you might only have one stage. If it's a complex pathway like this one, you'll see several stages. And so each pathway, if I just kind of click on it, I can see that they have different like preset views that it's going to cycle through as it goes through these pathways. And it kind of tells you a little bit about what's happening in each of these. At the simplest level, all you have to do is open up the pathway and come down here and hit the play button. And then it's just going to show color moving through the structures of the pathways. Now, you might have noticed when we went through that, that in that first pathway, after we got through the pharynx, we kind of couldn't see what was going on because we've got these organs there. So you actually can interact with these. So, I mean, this is your standard cadaver, just like all the other cadavers that you can interact with. You can actually open up the visibility menu and go, you know what? I don't like that heart is there blocking the esophagus. I can't see what's going on there. So I can come in here and either make the heart transparent or just toggle off the heart entirely. Just get all of that out of the way. Why not? Okay. So now if I hit play, I should be able to follow that pathway all the way down to the esophagus, into the stomach. Now we're going to see it go into the small intestines. And as you're using these pathways, you can always pause at any point. So you can talk with your students about what's happening, or you can have them talk to you about what's happening. So we know, okay, it's going into the small intestine where it's going to be absorbed. You know, you could even before, pause it before they move on to the next step, say, all right, what's it going to be absorbed into? Make them have to think about the different, veins that are coming out of the small intestine that are going to, be carrying that absorbed alcohol. All right, great. So now it shows it getting absorbed. I can pause again. I can zoom in. We can talk about what veins these are. Right. Okay, inferior mesenteric vein. All right, great. I mean, inferior, superior, sorry, tired. Superior mesenteric vein. All right, now where's it going to go? You can talk about how it has to go through the portal system, that it's not going directly into circulation. All right, where's it going from there? Oh, it's going to the liver. Okay, great. So then they can see it travel to the liver, gets metabolized in the liver, enters venous circulation. And then the other thing, now it's going to show it actually going through the heart and through that whole pathway. I always loved, that students forget that you can't just go from, point A to point B without getting through the heart first. So it kind of shows that having to go through that whole pathway into the left side of the heart, up into the aorta. Right. And then in this particular pathway, we're showing, all right, now where, obviously it goes everywhere, but we're showing that it goes up to the brain, which of course is going to give you all of those lovely effects of intoxication. And in case you didn't know, the effect of alcohol on the brain is that it turns it green. At least in this case, that's the effect of alcohol on the brain. And so again, you can pause, you can talk to your students at any point along this pathway, either have, you talk to them, they talk to you, kind of go through the process. All right, now what's happening in the brain, and so forth. Now you can make some changes to these. You can adjust the speed of the animation, actually in two ways. You can adjust it here, which if I change it here and change it to fast, it's going to go really, sorry, I forgot to go back to the beginning. Well, we just saw the brain go really fast. Let's try that again. You're gonna see it move really quickly through there. So that's a bit too fast for me. I like to keep it on medium. But you can also change some of the effects over here. You can change the effect of the coloring. So right now it's set to fill. Flow, I'm not a huge fan of the flow animation. I feel like it's kind of weird looking. Or is it not flow that I don't like? Well, maybe it's not flow that I don't like. I thought it was, but there it is. There it is. It gets like that little strobe light action going on. So yeah, that's why I'm not a fan of that one. Or the diffuse option, where it just kind of more slowly kind of turns color. So you can change the animation effect. You can also change the speed here. So if I have it like medium over here and medium or fast over here, I like medium and medium. I feel like it's a good pace. And then you can also change the color if you want to change the color. So you can kind of play around with some of those different features. And then if you make any changes to our existing pathways, it will ask if you want to save those changes, and then you can save those changes as your own new pathway. So you can be like alcohol modified. It won't let you overwrite ours, but it will let you make changes to ours and then save it as your own. So for instance, back here where I removed the heart from that scene, if I wanted to save that, what I would do, I'm going to go back in here and remove my heart again. There you are. Heart, veins. And then I would come over here and I would hit set view. And when you hit set view, it doesn't actually light up or tell you that it's doing anything, which freaks me out and makes me feel inclined to push set view like 15 times just to make sure that it did something. And so then that should now save that view, so that if I go save to pathway and rename this, now when I reopen it from my list, now I have my new one in there. It should now have that starting view with the heart removed. Of course, now I have to wait for it to load. And there it is with the heart removed. So you can modify and then save as your own. So that brings me to the last thing that you can do with this, and that is you can actually create your own custom pathways. This can get a little bit complicated depending on the pathway that you choose to create. So let's say we wanted to create a pathway. We're in the male cadaver, so maybe we want to create a pathway where we show the difference between, since their urethra is used for both urinary and reproductive purposes, maybe we create a pathway where we show like the path of urine through the urethra and where we show the path of like sperm, semen through the urethra. So the first thing we might want to do is set up our view. Now you can do this ahead of time, or you can do it once you're in the tool. It doesn't matter either way. But let's just go ahead and set up a view here. Let me just turn everything off that I don't want. Turn on urinary structures. I can zoom in. And then maybe I don't want a floating urethra out there in space because that's kind of weird. So I can turn on some, well, there's a lot going on there. Maybe I just do something like this. Kind of get some stuff going on out there so it's not totally hanging out in space, right? But now, of course, I can't see my urethra anymore, so maybe I want to make things transparent so I could see that. Great. Okay, so let's say this is my view that I want to start with to show like a urinary pathway. So I'm going to hit new, and then it's going to prompt you to create a new stage. So if I wanted to show both of these pathways kind of in the same pathway, then I could do urine flow as the first stage, and then I'm going to hit add. And now I need to add structures to my flow. And you can do this two ways. You can actually click on the structures in the 3D anatomy, or if you open up your visibility menu, you can just click on the structures in the visibility menu and add them to your list. I'm actually going to make one more change to my view while I'm in here. I'm going to make the external parts of my kidneys transparent. Oh, except I'm adding it. Notice that I'm now adding it to my list. That's okay. We'll come back to that. Apparently, clicking on the circle also adds it to my list. I'll show you how to remove those. All right, so now I have my kidneys looking a little more transparent. So let's say that I wanted to have my urine path actually start at the renal medulla. Obviously, we can't start at the nephron because we don't have them. So we'll just start in the renal medulla, and then from there, we're going to go into our major and minor calyces, into our renal pelvis. And just to show you, I can do it from the list. I can also click on the structure itself and add it to my list. So either way works. I prefer visibility menu, but that's just my preference. Into the urinary bladder, into my urethra. So now I have my full list, but I have some extra structures in there that I really don't want in there because I accidentally added them. That's okay. I'm going to hit finish. And now I can go into edit, and I can just delete those ones that I don't want. I can also, if I accidentally put them in the wrong order, I can go into edit and I can drag them around and I can reorder them. So once I've finished making my edits, I'm just going to turn off edit. So it's blue. I hit it again. It turns it off. Right. So now I have my list of structures. I want to decide what kind of fill effect I want to use and what speed I want it to be and what color I want it to be. It's urine. So, hey, we'll go with yellow. I also want to set my view. So I'm going to hit set view. Again, it doesn't actually do anything to show me that my view has been set. I just have to go on blind faith and hope for the best. So I've set my animation effect, I've set my speed and my color. Now I can test it out and see what it looks like by hitting play. Move this out of the way and see it flowing down. Like, wow, that's a little on the slow side. Let me pause this. Let me change this to fast and start it over and see. So I have medium here and fast over here. So let's see how that looks. That's a little bit better. All right, great. So now I can follow my urine into the urinary bladder and down through all of my regions of urethra, and voila, I have created a lovely urine flow pathway. Okay. Now let's say I want to throw in a second pathway in here where I distinguish urine flow from, say, sperm production and flow. So I'm going to create a new stage. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom. I'm going to hit new stage. I'm going to want to change my view here a little bit. I'm going to make my superficial fascia more transparent than it currently is. So hopefully that is transparent enough so I can see what's going on there. And of course, I need to add in my parts of my pathway that are going to be, and just the accessory parts that aren't part of the pathway but complete the picture. All right, great. I'm going to name my new stage. Maybe I name my new stage like sperm flow or something. It's kind of a weird name for it, but whatever. I'm going to hit add. Again, now I want to add my structures For me, it's easiest to do it this way because when you have transparencies, I feel like I never know what I'm actually clicking on. So I'm going to start right at my testis, go to my epididymis, go to my vas deferens, ejaculatory duct, onward into my urethra. Great. Now I've got my structure list set up. I'm going to keep the same settings there, but maybe I want to make it a different color. I don't know what a good color is. Let's try this color. Again, I'm going to hit set view so that I now have a new view for my sperm flow pathway. So if I go urine flow, I have one pathway. If I go sperm flow, it changes. So I can see each one of those. All right, great. So now I can start at the beginning. Trying to get this out of the way here, which I can't really do very well. I'm going to hit play. So now I can see pathway number 1, where the flow of urine is. And then it's going to move right into pathway number 2. And it's going to show sperm produced in the testes, coming up and out and through. And if you wanted to have some fun with it, you could throw in a third stage and do like retrograde ejaculation and show stuff going up into the bladder, going the wrong way, right? So all kinds of fun things that you can do with this tool. You know, use your imagination, and whatever you want to show, you could show. Now I've created all that. I want to make sure that I save it. So I'm going to hit save to pathway, and I'm going to name it whatever I want to name it. Hit OK. And now if I go back to my list, voila, I can see my new pathway that I added down there. And you'll notice the ones that are Anatomage created have purple arrows. Any of the ones that you create are just going to have white arrows. So that allows you to kind of distinguish between yours and ours, as it were, and you know which ones you can edit as is, or which ones you are going to have to edit and then save as a new one. So yeah, so that's the pathway tool. Obviously, you know, again, it's useful for showing the flow of things, and also could set up interesting discussions if you kind of pause along the way. And you could potentially, if you have some kind of screen recording software, you can actually set up these, these pathways, start the flow, and actually record using your screen recording software to create videos that you could then use, you know, for other purposes outside of table, to show like flow through various structures. All right, so that is pretty much the physiology tab in a nutshell. So again, right, we have the heart motion, beating heart with the ECG, really good for tying all the pieces together for your students. The nerve pathways, where you can look at motor, sensory pathways, autonomic pathways, catheterization tool, and then the basic pathways tool. And then I'm sure you've probably sat in on a table 8 preview session, so you know that there are more things coming to this tab. The eye motion tool, I don't know what its official name is. That's really sad that I don't know that. And the kinesiology tool, where you're going to be able to actually show joint movement, which is pretty slick. So there's more things coming. And of course, we always encourage you to give us feedback on what is currently there, and also what you might like to see there in the future, because we're always looking to add new stuff. So please, please, please let us know what you think.